as a business owner, you get really thin and you're not really making that money when you're saying yes to everything.
Can you share a specific experience when saying yes to too many things stretched you too thin?
And the scariest thing is when you start telling people, no, I'm not going to take that work.
You have a ton of experience in different roles, industries. What are some of these universal lessons and skills that you have learned that have proven to be the most valuable in your career?
Get used to the uncomfortable, get used to failing, but get really used to getting back up. That's what the first thing I say for anyone that's trying to get into tech. This is really transparent.
Hey, welcome to this week's episode of Power Talks. My name is Griffin, the host of the Citizen Developer channel and Power Talks series. I just wanted to make a really quick announcement. For the past 40-ish episodes or so, we have been strictly on YouTube, but we are now cross-platform on your favorite podcasting platform, whatever that is, Spotify, Apple Music, Amazon, all of those things. You can find a link to that in the description down below. But okay, cool. I wanted to get into the conversation. Today, I'm joined by super special guest, Mary Myers. And Mary, I wanted to ask you, you had something that I thought was very relatable in getting to know you. You said that you learned the importance of when to say no. And it sounded like there was a story here. I wanted to ask you, can you share a specific experience when saying yes to too many things stretched you too thin?
Yeah, it's funny. That has been one of the biggest lessons I think that I have learned probably in 2024 and also as a business owner. And it's two things. I think that the first thing that we kind of think about is like those extracurricular activities, right? I am really passionate about being supportive in the community and helping and trying to, do as much nonprofit and volunteer work as I can. And so that's something that's really near and dear to my heart. But I have also learned that it comes at a cost sometimes, right? And I don't want to say yes if I'm not going to be doing a full service. It's like if I'm going to mentor somebody, if I say yes and I'm only halfway there, that's not giving somebody that like real experience. And I've also found too, another like fun saying that I have is like, even when I'm winning, I'm losing. So that's just kind of been an important component. In fact, this last year where was I? Sometimes I honestly even forget about what states I've been in. This last fall was really, really crazy. We had Summit in Texas, and we also had a hurricane. And I was supposed to be in Scotland, all in like a week period, basically. And I was really, really stressed about it. And I was so grateful. I was supposed to present at the Scottish Summit. And I have been a virtual presenter there, and it was going to be my first time that I was going to give a workshop for them. They were the first people that agreed to let me do a workshop, and that was something that I worked really hard at like being able to get. But I remember I was at Days of Knowledge. That's where I was. I was in Atlanta at Days of Knowledge, and I was talking about how thinly stretched I was between work and personal commitments. But that I still had to go over, I was going to go over to Scotland. And I remember Kenny looking at me and he was like, what do you have to prove? Like, what do you have to prove? This is really transparent. He was like, you're only going, like, you don't have to build a name for yourself. Like, you can rest assured in that. And so if you go over there, like, what benefit is it helping? And what are you hurting? Right. And so I canceled. And I felt terrible about it. But he was like, cancel with enough time to give them. So I canceled within like maybe 2 months ahead of time. And then ironically enough, then what ended up happening is we had a hurricane hit. I had to evacuate. And I would have been gone for 10 days from my house. And I actually was supposed to fly right from Dallas to Scotland and to be there for a few more days and then circle back. And as a single mom, I would have been away from my son for that entire time. So, it's kind of a long story to say that was kind of like a personal scenario, where really in the end, like it gutted me to say no, but I ended up having to. I will say that I am more protective about saying yes to my personal commitments, though, for like those opportunities. I think like little last point I'll say on when it's really important to say no is as a business owner. It is hard to think, oh, I'm not going to say yes to that job. I'm not going to say yes. You know what I mean? Like when I first started off, like I would do anything, right? I can do that. I
Sure.
can do that. And so you get really thin and you're not really making that money when you're saying yes to everything. So I had to learn to get really protective over my time and what I was going to charge for that time and to be really confident in that. And the scariest thing is when you start telling people, no, I'm not going to take that work. But my revenue and like my quality of life really increased when I was able to get like really super specific on what revenue purposes I was going to say no to and what I was going to say yes to. So I figured I'd share that little tidbit as well.
Yeah. I think there's a ton of like little nuggets that you said there that I want to like follow up and ask on. So for I relate to what you're saying as far as like overcommitting to stuff in that I it got to a point where there was like I wasn't doing any of the things I committed to well because I was just like trying to do everything
Yeah.
and my like quality of I guess of work you could call it even though they were mostly personal things. But you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
the quality or like my ability to actually be present and be there was like really poor. And so I think about that. And I also think about I think a lot of MVPs can relate to what you say in that I mean I haven't met with an MVP who just exclusively their full-time job is just to make content, right? Like they're doing things in whether it's, you know, for full-time work or they're a business owner or they're, you know, a freelance private consultant
Mm-hmm.
and then they're sharing and making content on top of that. And I know for myself, when I first wanted to start sharing what I was learning, I was like, all right, I'm going to start a YouTube channel. I'm going to start a blog. I'm going to start posting on LinkedIn. I have personal commitments, like I want to have a healthy relationship with my friends and my wife, and I
Yeah.
won't have to work full time, and I want to grow my career. So it's like, how do I do all of these things? So I think what you're saying there is pretty insightful in that for you, you found that less is more, like your ability to do less and just like really, really focus on that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and that way I can feel good about the things that I'm doing. This year, I didn't get to spend as much time in some of the nonprofit opportunities that I really like to do. But, you know, to your point, like, I have a teenage son, and raising a teenage boy is not for the faint of heart. And that's been a really big adjustment that I've had to make this last year is really focusing off some of that time, because the areas that I don't want to be losing are with him. I only have a few years left. In some ways, it feels like so. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, shout out to all the boy moms out there, for real. So that's awesome. I wanted to ask you a follow-up question though. So you've gone from saying yes to so many things to saying no to many more things. Like how do you effectively communicate no? Like how do you tell someone like, nope, I'm good. I don't want to work with you, you know, respectfully. Like how do you do those things and how do you navigate those conversations?
So I think again, it depends on who we're saying no to and why we're saying no is a big indicator on how I respond. For example, just this morning, I was heartbroken to pull back on an event that I was supposed to be at in a few days. It just wasn't going to align. Now, I was mortified to be canceling 2 days before. So that would be, you know, first thing that I would say, number one is respect people, right? Like show people enough respect for their time and give them the ability to replace. Like if it's a situation like an event situation, you know, I try to either give them enough time to be able to replace me, or better yet, if you're going to say no, do you have a backup? Do you have a referral? And that is also such an amazing way to uplift and bring others up in the community too, right? Because like we rise by lifting others. So if I can't do it, then I bet you I know someone else, right, that can do it. So for example, last week I had to teach a co-pilot studio class, and I I did not have the time to create an entire workshop. I happen to know a gentleman, his name is Jordan Bardwell, and he is a user in my user group. And he loves Copilot Studio, and he's brilliant. So I was like, I can't do this, but Jordan, do you want to step in? And so now I'm telling him, why don't you submit this to the Power Platform Conference? Like, this is amazing. So, sorry, just like a little rabbit hole there, right? So one, it's like always trying to give like enough time and to like support it. And I think that would be kind of like my response for like an event situation. If I say no, and then it's always just transparency. I would really love to be there, but I can't. The funner one, right, is when it comes to work. So I'll give two situations. One's dicey, one's probably more professional and normal. So we'll keep it fun. Let's start with spicy. So I am really adamant about certain things, right? Like, what am I going to spend my time doing? So I was on a call. I was actually working this deal for a very large, lucrative deal that the company that I was going to be brought in on. And I needed some help from some other teammates of mine. So I had them get on a call, like we were going down the line, right? Really great deal. I got on the call with that client, and they had been rude and condescending and disrespectful to me from the word go. But I was like, that's fine. I can kind of like, you know what I mean, handle that a little bit more. That's fine. Like, not everything's going to be like kitten gloves. But then when I got on the call, they were so disrespectful and rude, blatantly rude. Like, I will just leave it there. I could go in a lot more to them. And so whenever we hung up the call, I emailed the owner of that company and I told them that I would be pulling from the project and will not do that. And he was like, can we talk about why? And I was like, absolutely. Now, him and I never were able to honestly get on a phone call because we kept crossing paths, but I was 100% going to tell him exactly why I was not going to be, you know what I mean, on that call. But that's kind of how it is. If you're not going to show respect to me or my time, or especially the people that I'm going to work with, it's just a hard no. It's just a hard no. This is not how it's going to go. And again, if it's a nicer situation, then I'll have a referral, right? But it's always really just about being honest and transparent and just being really genuine with the answer. And it's gone by just fine. Anyone that was mad, they were probably in the spicy scenario that I didn't want to work with him anyways. And like, why? Nobody wants to work with terrible clients. Like, respectfully, I've got better things to do.
Sure. Okay, so this could be an interesting segue here. So like, you have a ton of experience in different roles, different industries, doing different things. Like, what are some of these universal lessons that you've kind of learned? I think you're tapping into one of them, and I guess one of them could be learning how to say no correctly. But like, what are some of these universal lessons and skills that you have learned that have proven to be the most valuable in your career?
Yeah. First and foremost, I think hard work pays off, right? Like, maybe some people can outwork me, but I think that that's the thing, right? Like, I'm not going to back down from a challenge. I don't feel like I fail. I think that there's definitely opportunities for improvement, but I think one thing is like just always getting back up. It doesn't matter what job, because I mean, here's the thing: we're gonna have bad days, we're gonna have bad situations, and I think we're not always gonna like the bosses that we have, right? But I think that like perseverance through, no matter if it's school or any job, and I kind of think of that. I'm really speaking to my citizen developers, and the people that are trying to get into tech. Because I don't have a tech background, right? I've got my degree in like business management and accounting, and I am a citizen developer. I taught myself everything, through like YouTube and like different things like that. So that's what the first thing I say for anyone that's trying to get into tech is like, and when I'm teaching Power Platform classes, I'm like, get used to the uncomfortable, get used to failing, but get really used to getting back up. Because you just have to get back up one more time, then you fail, right? So that would be, I think, one of the first things that I would say. And then I think something too that's been incredibly crucial. So, and I kind of dive back into some really early managerial experience that I had. What was I, 22? and I was running a bar. I was our office manager and our bar manager, and then I would help with like the front staff as well. And let me tell you that I did not have a lot of friends when I first started at that job. They people just they and like sometimes that happens, right? They're like, oh, we don't really want to listen to this young girl in charge. Really, is what it comes down to. And so the way that I would kind of outwork that situation is I am never going to ask somebody to do something that I wouldn't do myself. Right. And so it was like I was in there plunging toilets or running food, doing whatever it was. Didn't matter how busy I was as a manager, I was still going to work around and like find the time to like take care of other people, right? Do things before I'm asking somebody else to do them. Um, because that earns respect. That's at least what I feel like, right? Like then later on, when you ask for help or you're kind of like looking for some additional support, people are so much more willing to help you because they know that you were there first for them. And I think that that's just really helped me grow in all of my careers when I'm trying to like, climb the ladders. There's always somebody watching that, and then you earn friends along the way. So I think that those are some of my really two big lessons I think that I could give.
Hey, if you are finding this video impactful or insightful, be sure to like and subscribe. But more importantly, if you are wanting to learn more about the Microsoft Power Platform, then you are going to want to check out the completely free self-paced course that has all of the hand-picked content directly from me as the first link down in the description down below. This is going to teach you everything you need to know about the Power Platform to get started and pass your first few Microsoft certifications. I can honestly say that as a Power Platform consultant myself that I love what I do, and I don't think many people in today's day and age can say that. If you are wanting to learn more, as I mentioned, be sure to check out the first link in the description down below to get in direct contact and connect with me. All right, let's get back to the conversation. I think that's a super common theme, like this idea of like working hard and just figuring it out, like being okay with problem solving and not being able to solve a problem. I think that like even for myself, like I do not have a computer science background or anything like that, and I I think that yeah, like having that resolve to just like figure it out, and you're just gonna like, I don't know why this flow is failing or what syntax error this is, but I'm gonna figure it out. I'm gonna Google it. I'm gonna watch YouTube videos and different things. And I think that's like a common theme for a lot of people in the Power Platform space. That is like, it's really cool and really unique, and that something that I appreciate about that, because I like to think, I hope and like to think that I am a hard worker, and I can respect other people that also are like hard workers. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
does that make sense? I guess what I'm saying. I guess I wanted to ask you as well. Like you started to mention like climbing the ladder or getting into leadership roles and different things. Like say I've now been in my career for a couple years. I've learned the Power Platform. I wouldn't necessarily consider myself an expert, but I'm starting to get to that point where I could want to, get into a leadership role. Like what kind of advice or advice would you have for that person, or things that they can look out for certain opportunities to grow?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And I think that the way that you grow honestly changes within different environments in different industries. I've been in a lot of different industries. I've been in, retail, in restaurant, in manufacturing, in construction, and cosmetics. And it was really hard to get up the ladder there. I don't feel like I could, like, I would work 60 hours a week and I wasn't going to go anywhere. And what I like about tech, and I don't know if it's tech, I don't know if it's me that's changed in this, but the way that I kind of look at it now, like how have I grown my career in tech? That's really all I can kind of say in like this space, right? And so my experience there has been once we learn something, this is what I tell every person that goes through like Tech Fluid, and I have so many conversations where I say the same thing. They're like, how do I get a job after? Right? And so I think it's whether you want to get a job or whether you want to grow yourself. What is it that you love? What is it that you're passionate about? Post about that every day. share about that, right? Like whether it be to your point, LinkedIn, so or like anywhere, YouTube, because you want people to know, like, what do you want people to know you for? That's kind of what I'm getting at, right? Like, people know and think exactly what you tell them to think and know about you, right? So we're like all in like this little bubble. So if you want to get a job in tech, start right. That's what I tell them. Like, write use cases, write what you learned about today, blog what you learned about today. So I always tell my tech fluent, anyone here that's new in tech and wanting to get a job, build and blog those use cases, because then when you go into that job and they're like, oh, you don't have any use, you don't have any experience, you're going to pull out a portfolio. I don't care if it's a OneNote, I don't care if it's a PowerPoint, I don't care if you have just memorized what you have done. But when you can tell them, right, oh, I thought about this problem, I created this solution, and this is what it did, and these are the steps that I took, there's very few consultants, right, that have been out there for years and years that can properly articulate or show a really good example or resume of what they've done. So that's kind of like the first thing that I say, right? It's like, put it out there. Tell people exactly what you're doing. And it's funny what people end up, thinking. Some people know me for Business Central, and some people just know me for Power Platform, and some people know that I extend Business Central with the Power Platform, right? And so, but that's those versions of exactly what I put out there, kind of in there. And I've been, to your point, I've been doing it for a really long time. It's not like I just started last year. I've been, posting on LinkedIn since 2019. So I think that that's kind of the thing too, right? Just kind of put yourself out there. That's kind of the thing, right? I know that sometimes people give like some of these recruiting companies a really hard time. And they're like, oh, you're poaching here, you're poaching here, you're poaching that. No, if somebody's actively posting online, anyone that's smart, right, is going to go in and be like, this is the next person that I need. That's when people are like, do you know someone for this? Do you know someone for this? I'm taking who have I been seeing posting online, and I'm sending that to like that person. So yeah, I don't know. Like I said, it's like we're gonna get everyone. I'm not trying, but like I said, like these are the things, right? Like you have to be okay with things being uncomfortable and being changing, because that's probably when you're going to take that next step. When people are like feeling kind of like uncomfortable about how much presence you're putting online, they're threatened because they're thinking that there's a recruiter coming in for you, right? And so that's their option. They can either pay up, or you can go find somewhere else that's going to respect you and capitalize on that.
Sure. That I've had several conversations with different people of just like their stance on that, like on the show, different conversations, and making sure that like it's just fair and equitable. And I think that as long as you feel like it's fair and equitable where you are, that
Yes.
shouldn't be a problem. And so
Yes.
I totally get it. I totally get it. And I wanted to hammer on something that you said before your unpopular opinion there. And it was that like just to start posting was kind of what you had said. And I guess I just wanted to encourage anyone out there. I think for one, the Power Platform, Microsoft Dynamics, just the whole space and larger than the space is really like encouraging. Like nobody is going to make fun of you even if you say something that's incorrect. Like someone will just be like, hey, it actually kind of works like this, whatever. And
Yeah.
if you're embarrassed enough to delete your post, you can do that, I guess. But like, I don't know, just the community is super supportive. That's the word I was looking for. Super supportive. And I will say, for me especially, at first, like, you will feel like an imposter. Like, you will feel like only experts post about this stuff. But to your point, Mary, like, you only become that expert because you've been posting about it. So it's like at the same time. So go ahead.
My favorite, to your point on that, my favorite thing that I've heard is you're only 100 LinkedIn posts from being a subject matter expert in whatever field you want. You're like, hey, I'm not an expert. You are. Let me just go ahead and tell you that you've put in your time. You're good there. And to your point too, right? It's just kind of like an encouragement for anyone listening to post your stuff. And like, if you just saw a blog article and you're like, I was gonna write a blog article about purchase invoices in Business Central. Fine, good, go for it. I don't care if there's 100 other posts out there, because there's not a post that you wrote, and like everyone learns in a different way. You know what I mean? And so we all need to hear things from different perspectives. So like if you don't post that, you're actually just doing somebody a disservice because they can't learn. from your magicness or from your like greatness. So post away, doesn't matter what it's on.
Yeah. I wanted to, I guess, flip the conversation a little bit. I want to talk to you more about WorldMax and talk about, you mentioned being a business owner several times. Like if someone's listening to this and they don't know who Mary is and what WorldMax is, what's the story here? What's the testimony, if you would, of WorldMax? Like I want to hear a little bit more about this.
Yeah, WorldMax it's my baby. For anyone can see this, I even have on like my branded, and this is like me every day. Like I show up to my own bedroom office in work clothes. So I'm actually super proud. On February 1st, 2021, I lost my job. Um, Now it's funny because WorldMax actually started long before that. I went to an app in a day class in 2019, and I was so blown away by what it could do for everyone, right? Like when I got into tech, I doubled my income with one signature. And as a single mom, that was absolutely like life changing. And so when I saw the Power Platform, it opened my eyes to this opportunity where tech was accessible to everyone, right? Like now I was not the only special single mom that could be actually able to support her son without being, completely broke on a day-to-day basis. And the Power Platform could do that. I was so excited on my way home. I was in New York and I was flying home to South Carolina that I had to give this feeling I had inside a name, and it was WorldMax, and it's helping as many people reach their maximum potential with the Power Platform. So that's like my WorldMax, and so like I want to help the world, right, reach their maximum potential, and our Power Platform, like so Power Platform, and I have my squared because when you take something to an exponential level, excuse me, my voice is going here, but when you take something to an exponential level, you get there quicker, right? So that's my whole like. You can kind of see my little WorldMax
I
thing
see.
there.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
gotcha.
So that's kind of what happened there, right? And so I started off going and building solutions and figuring it out and posting online and posting terrible YouTube videos starting in 2018, which is almost 10 years now. That's actually so scary when I just looked at that number. And I started doing that, right? Just for fun, just for any user group that would even listen to me and take me, right? Just put me anywhere. And then finally one day somebody was like, "Hey, I need a flow. Can you build it for me?" And I was like, I don't really do that for money." They're like, "You do now. Like tell me your hourly rate." And so I started doing Power Platform work on the side. And the partner that I was working with at the time, they were just a Business Central partner and they didn't care anything about Power Platform. So they let me keep working on the side, right? Because I did so much during the day. They're like, "Look, if you can accomplish everything that you need to during the day and do whatever you want to do on the side, go for it." It's not a conflict of interest. So I ended up growing that side business so much that when I actually was supposed to go for like a promotion at this company, and I showed up to like this big meeting, I was like, "Look, I don't want to do any of the really boring things on this job description list. Let's start a Power Platform company. I already have like the back business, like we can just tie this in and like grow it." And they were like, "No." And a month later, on February 1st, I got a call. It's like, "We're gonna let you go." And I was like, I saw this coming. But that was what I always knew was going to happen, right? And so honestly, it was on that day that I went into full time and doing my own gig. So March 1st, 2021 was like, so I went down hardcore for like a month to figure out the packages and services, and then I launched. So
Wonderful.
that's the next.
What
Yeah.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's really cool what you're talking about as far as maximizing your full potential. And I was fortunate enough. I'm a big sports guy, and so I grew up playing a lot of sports in high school, and I was very fortunate to have a really great coach who taught me this idea of reaching your full potential. And as a football player, as a high school student, as a son, as a husband now, like I want to reach my full potential in all areas of my life, and that everybody might have different potentials, but nonetheless it's not like what you get to. It's a matter of like just getting to that maximum and like working every day to reach that. So I really love that because I as well try to like live by that mantra. So I think that's really cool. But I wanted to ask you, what's one of the birth of, I guess, WorldMax full time is was
Mhm.
obviously a challenge. But what's one of the toughest challenges that you faced since, and I want to say this, as chief maximizer, I believe is
Yes,
your title on
it
LinkedIn.
is.
What's what's one of the toughest challenges you faced as chief maximizer at WorldMax, and how did you overcome it?
Gosh, here's the thing. Year one, right? So, what I would say too is on that fateful day on February 1st, the part that I actually left out is after I got let go of my job, I walked downstairs and I told my husband at the time that we were no longer going to be together, that we were absolutely getting a divorce.
Wow.
All on the same day. Yeah. And so I started this company, and I mean, we won't get into the backside of that, but so I started my company. And so it was just a few weeks after that I moved to Florida. And when I moved to Florida, I had my son. And at that point, I had $7 left to my name. So that's kind of what I started my first year of my business in is through all of that turmoil, right? And that I have to say, the fact that I looked back at that first year and I had a profit, it wasn't much, but I had a profit, I had like survived and I had made it through, was the biggest accomplishment, because it was like if I could make it through the darkest of times and still get through, then I knew it would be fine. And I think, right, so what carried me through then and everything else is this pure belief that what I have to offer, right? That I can truly help companies transform the way that they work, that I care about their business the way that I care about my own business, that I am not going to do anything for them that I wouldn't do for myself, right? It's kind of like tying all of those things back in. And so it was just that positive feedback and positive reinforcement from my customers and from the community that yes, this is right, we're doing good. And so even if everything was like really, really chaotic on the backside, that positive reinforcement of like the belief in what I was doing carried me through.
What size businesses do you typically work with? Is it like all over the spectrum, or I guess my question is, a lot of the people we have on this show, and myself included, work generally with like enterprise level organizations, as we might call it, right? National and
Yeah.
global companies. What what's kind of your experience, and if it's different than that, I'd love to hear like how it's different in from a stance of like delivering on projects and working with those businesses.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, some of my original customers, let me kind of clarify a few of the services that I provide that'll probably help with some of the customers as well. So, not only do we do consulting work where it's like, hey, let's extend Business Central, or hey, I have a process that needs to be automated. So we'll go through a digital transformation where we do consulting and we do the work. We also do training services, right? So it's you don't, you want to upskill your employees or your staff, right, with Power Automate or Power Platform skills. So we also provide training services, and then we also provide support services for all of our friends, right, that have then gone on to learn the Power Platform, and they're somewhere between, a beginner and like an expert, and they don't want to spend 19 hours Googling the answer. They can just put in a support ticket with us, right? So these are the services that we offer. But these were not the services that we always have offered. And part of your point has been kind of like bringing in these different customers. So, our first initial customers, we were working with bigger Microsoft partners. So, a lot of our end, right? So, we're kind of like a subcontractor. So those customers were very large enterprise level customers, right? And then honestly, from my previous experience, I've always kind of worked with that C-suite level. So having conversations with C-suite, you know what I mean, employees or C-suite level is nothing different to me. And then because I sat on the other side, I sat in those roles, right? I've been an end user. I've been on the AP team. I've been on the sales team. I've been in the purchasing team. So I know the roles and like the issues that they face too. So, originally I had a lot of larger customers. And then in the last couple of years, I've also kind of switched it. Not only do I work with Microsoft partners and their customers, But I found that a lot of the end customers are just starting to come to me again, right? When we're talking about marketing and those different things, putting it out there consistently, being a small business owner myself, I can really relate to other small business owners. So, we may work with a small mom and pop shop where it's just, one person and maybe they've got like a subcontractor or two, just something small, which is why they really need that automation. I can help them scale so quickly. They don't need to have 5 people, right? We can kind of meet them right there. So, we'll have really small people. I actually have, let's see here, 4 professional sports teams as well, as my customers. So, I've got a soccer team, I've got a basketball team. So we've got some different things, you know what I mean, in there. So we're really kind of hitting like the whole spectrum. I think that's WorldMax, right? Because it's like we can really help people wherever they're at. It's just kind of identifying who they are.
What's one of the biggest differences between those large business implementations and the small business implementations? Like trying to imagine what a project would look like with a mom and pop shop, as you called it, and like the
Yeah.
differences that would be. That I think they'd be super fun, but also some certain challenges. So I'd love to hear what you have to say.
Yeah, that's a great point. So there's definitely challenges, and a lot of them are going to come down to um, finances. That's honestly like a big thing, right? It's because the cash flow isn't always there for them, and so they're so much tougher. They're so much more scared to put that money out, because it means so much more. 10 grand to me is a lot of money, right? 10 grand to Hitachi, nothing. You know what I mean? And so, in those different, components. So like whenever you're spending stuff, I do 90% of my marketing in house. When I'm going to spend money on something, I need to know that it has a
Yeah.
really big ROI, right? We're like our CTOs spend money; it's free money. I mean, I like them. I like a big project. I'm going to be on it for a long time, and there's not going to be any issues, right? But I also really love working with our small mom and pops because, like I said, I just treat it like my own, right? Like I feel like their money is my money, and I'm going to spend it accordingly. I'm going to fight for them and like make sure that we get a really good project, that we have an MVP approach, that we're not spending more money than we have to. But like they also appreciate, because to your point, they don't often know the skill sets and the different technical components. And so there's a lot of times where I'm kind of like respectfully like, no, we really should not, you know what I mean, do it this way, kind of respectfully telling them no in some regards. So I think that that's kind of thing. It's really a more of like a close relationship when we're working with those small people, because the money, right? Like money isn't everything, but what you do with it definitely counts, and that really matters to a small business. So I think that that's some of like the big differences.
What are some of the like outside of money differences, like the fulfilling parts of working with mom and pop shops? And I'd also love to hear, I know you work with WorldMax works with certain communities as far as like teaching people the Power Platform and different things. Like what's kind of like that side and the enjoyment and fulfillment that you and your team receives from doing those things?
Yeah, I think because again, not coming from a traditional tech background, I have been involved with several mom and pop, companies. Growing up, honestly, so my mom ran her own business, and I was like 13 doing QuickBooks for her. Just kind of like helping that. Like I saw how hard she struggled. Honestly, I think kind of helped me like in what I do. And so having some of that firsthand experience, like I love as a business owner too, like
Absolutely. And I'm not saying you are new to the space, but I think that's an advantage that people who are in the first 2 to 5 years of experience into the Power Platform, into Microsoft Dynamics, like that's actually an advantage that I think a lot of us have because while I love talking to and learning expertise from people with decades of experience, a lot of times, like if they were to try to explain something to, your local restaurant server, like they would not be able to because it's like there's things that are so second nature to them that they haven't had to learn for 20 years would be really hard to communicate. So I think that's actually an advantage that um, people have that are either come from that no code background or are new to the Power Platform because they can help bridge that. Yeah. Yeah, I think I heard some good advice. I don't remember where, but like I want everybody to watch my videos, right? I'm making content for people who are me 2 or 3 years ago. You know what I mean? Like that, those are the people that I feel like I can best educate. And me, I'm trying to talk to people who are, you know, I'll talk to any expert, like I said, but there's people who are like 2, 3, 4 years in front of me are the people that like I can tangibly see. It's hard for me to tangibly see what my career in Power Platform looks like 20 years from now. You know what I mean? As opposed to talking to somebody who's three years ago they were a consultant like me, and things. So I I don't know if you have anything else to add there. I want to give you the floor. Go ahead. Yeah. Sweet. Thank you. Well, I wanted to take the last couple minutes here. We have our after hours happy hour segment of the show. And this is kind of where we can just talk about a little bit more about who we are outside of work. You've talked several times. You're a proud boy mom as well. You mentioned that you are like playing golf and are passionate about golf. I just need to say I am not a golfer. I'm horrible at golf. I I don't even like when we live across the street from a Top Golf, and I don't even think I can hit it like 60 yards on the top floor. Like I'm like horrible in every single way, and my competitiveness despises that. So I'd love to hear about your golf skills over here. Yeah. 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 Golfing is the best way to vet new clients. That's what I'm hearing. To vet new projects. There you go. Mary, thank you so much for being here. Your energy is electric, truly. So I appreciate the time that you spent. If people were impacted by this conversation and wanted to connect with you, what would be the best way for them to get in contact with you? Sweet. Yeah, I'll be sure to have a link to your LinkedIn down in the description down below so people can send you a message or a connection. So thank you again, Mary, for being here. And thank you to you for sticking to the end of the video. My name is Griffin Lickfelt, the host of the Citizen Developer channel and Power Talk series. Be sure to check it out on your favorite platform, and I'm excited to connect with you in the next one.